What is up? It is another Tuesday, and you know what that means. Wednesday's tomorrow, and also you're listening to the HiTech Podcast, because I know my calendar. I know how weeks work. What is up, folks? You're listening to the HiTech Podcast, brought to you by Harness Tech. I am Josh Schwartz, one of the hosts of the HiTech Podcast, joined by my other fellow host extraordinaire, apparently can cook salmon. Will, what's up, Will?
Hello, my friend. Yes, today was a very successful lunch cooking of salmon. Salmon cooking of lunch? Yep.
Both sentences
I
didn't
cooked
work,
salmon.
to be honest.
Yep. Tuesday, Josh has actually joined my co-working space, the Candy Factory. Plug for Lancaster, Pennsylvania, folks. If you're ever in the area, come by the Candy Factory. Wonderful place to co-work. But I came in the morning and I actually went home and cooked lunch, and then I came back. But the story upon returning from lunch was I actually successfully and tastefully cooked salmon. It's a hard thing to cook. Usually it just gets it a little too dry. Not a fan. But that is what it is. Now, I think this is funny. I don't know why we've ended up so deeply into this conversation of salmon, but it's not the last time you're going to hear about food in this episode.
This episode will have other cooking notes. I just thought it was funny. You came back, you were like, I cooked salmon. Meanwhile, I was like microwaving some like leftover, already originally microwaved meal in the microwave at the Candy Factory. It was a whole thing. Also, just a thought occurred to me. So far, I've loved the Candy Factory. I just want to preface that with what we've been doing. If you're not a part of a co-working space, you work remote, I encourage you, go check out a co-working space in your area. If they exist, if you're near Will and I, check out the Candy Factory. But there's not a lot of candy, honestly. I've just thought of the fact that there's no candy. There's lots of other things. There's lots of other great stuff.
Right.
I just realized today, you told me this already, but that you can get cereal for yourself. I didn't realize there was like a cereal. I forgot there was a cereal thing.
A little cereal bar. There's some bagels in the fridge. Yep.
Yeah, it's like a whole thing. Anyway, enough. Well, I would say enough about food, but that's going to not be the first time you hear that during this episode. We are excited. In this episode, we are having an old friend of the podcast, Renee Dawson, join us. It's been a little bit since Renee has been a guest on the podcast. She first appeared way back in episode 100. We did the Canva or Extrava Canva. Yes, that's what we titled it. We screwed up every time. Yep. Renee was a part of that episode. We really loved having her on, became pretty good friends with Renee. And then she joined us a little bit during FETC, but Will and I kind of only count that because it was like 20 minutes at a table. We got like a brief period.
And she got photo bombed or podcast bombed by book creators. So.
Yeah, book creators. She's like talking about book creator and somebody from book creators there. So anyway, it kind of counted. So we want to have Renee back on for a little while. Stars just aligned. Renee is joining us for this episode to talk. It's still going to connect a little bit into the education space that, as we've talked about, we're broadening a bit farther out of HiTech. We're still going to talk in those areas. So this is a good example of where we're going to still be talking in that space. But one of the things I think is a little bit different is Renee has been doing more consulting since the last time we talked with her in EdTech, in that field. She's doing a whole bunch of stuff and is just an awesome person in general in EdTech and has some great perspectives in that area. So we're going to be talking with her about how to get set up in consulting. What are some of the tools she's been using? We will also be talking briefly about how to make rice. So if you're curious, get your tablet out or your notes, whatever you want to do. If you want to know how to make rice, apparently Will also loves making rice, which I learned in this episode.
It's my one food specialty. I've been able to make it since I was like 8 years old. So
it's a whole thing. So anyway, we're super excited to have Renee on. And so with that said, I'm not going to say much more. Let's go and hear from Renee and talk about consulting and everything in between.
Well, let's try that again. Folks, we are back. This has been a little bit of a misfire for us. We've had some technical glitches, but we are here finally with our friend, our guest, Renee Dawson. How are you doing today, Renee?
I am doing awesome. How are you guys doing?
Well, better
besides
now.
The little glitches.
Good now. We're here. Started. We can all hear each other. It's great.
Third, fourth, 16th wall breaking. Like we literally just hit record a second ago and the technology just turned off. It's fine. We're here. Everything is running. So we're very excited to get past the technology and start the conversation. Renee, it has been a minute since we had you on the podcast. Josh might start looking that up for me in a second. So
it was FETC in January, but that was...
Well, there was FETC in January, but we had even been on before that. We met like forever
right, with
ago.
the Canva episode.
Yeah.
That's right. It would have been episode 100 then, the Canva extravaganza. Yeah.
Whatever we call it. Extravaganza.
Extravaganza.
Was that the name? The title? I don't remember.
We're professionals at this, aren't we? We've really got this nailed.
I'm afraid to click anywhere after that breakdown, so I'm just going to...
Yeah, exactly. Everybody hands off the table. No, but thank you so much for continuing to be a friend and hanging out and chatting at FETC and connecting. But things have been a little different for you. So you have left the formal, whether it was choice or not, K-12 world, and you are now in the consultant space, right? Tell us a little bit about what the change is.
That's correct. I was under a grant for my school, and the grant ended. And so with the grant ending, so did my job, which happens. Unfortunately, I have several advanced degrees, so that makes me an expensive person to keep on staff. And just didn't work out for us. So I decided to branch out on my own in the consulting space. And I've had pretty good success so far. And I think a lot of that has to do with my self-branding and putting myself out there on social media. So right now I'm just kind of working with some teachers to share like how I've gotten to this point so quickly and so happily.
Yeah, I mean, you were telling us before we got started, like 4 or 5 folks going right now and different things here and there. So it's like Josh and I know consulting a little bit, and it can be hard to get those first clients, but it's great to hold on to them if you have them. So I'm glad that that's been a good success so far.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the clients I just went up to at a conference and was like, hey, y'all are a bootstrap startup. You probably need a content writer. I do that. Let's get in touch. And now I'm on a contract with them, and they are bootstrapped. So I do get a monthly paycheck, but I also get equity in their company every month.
Wow. Hey, that's a great way to get in. Let's hope for a rocket ship, right? That's great for everybody. Well, what's kind of the nature then of this consultancy? So are you staying in content? Are you doing like teacher preparation? Where are you going with it?
So I have 2 content creation contracts, both different things. One of them is for an out-of-school virtual learning platform where they do like virtual field trips. And then one of them is I'm writing AI courses and micro-credentials for teachers.
Okay.
But then on top of that, I also I'm the community manager for Almanac AI, which is a Canadian AI education platform, where one of my favorite features that they have is you can take a picture of your notes and the AI will convert it into a slide deck for you.
Ooh.
Whoa. Okay.
That's fun.
Handwritten notes or?
Handwritten notes. And so like I wrote down the other day, I wrote down parts of a plant, took a picture of it, uploaded it into Almanac, and it made me a slide deck with pictures, information, student check-in points, all of that good stuff.
Wow. And that's Almanac is the name of the tool.
Yeah, with a CK.
Awesome. We'll look that one up and make sure they're show noted. I mean, we love this moment, right? AI is everywhere. Everyone, but like I've heard, put in your stuff, but there are still so many folks, even tech literate, tech entrenched people who like to handwrite things. I wrote a priority list for myself just last weekend. Sorry, Josh. It was on a whiteboard. I love just swiping things away.
Apologize for writing it. It's this is the whole system I helped you build.
I'll get there. I'm on my way.
It's fine. It's whatever.
Sometimes you have to handwrite it. Sometimes you have to handwrite it because it feels so good just to cross it off a list.
When I get stressed,
it's so good.
Handwriting gets some of the stress out. That's what happens for me. So I just need to get it to notioning. Then it will also get the stress out.
To both of you, I'll just say drum for 10 years, and then your feeling will be very different about handwriting. Like it'll be like, oh, I have to handwrite. Oh my gosh, is this what my bones feel like? Like that will be the experience you have. So that's all I'm saying. Sorry, continue.
That's great. So but in all these jobs though, then you're picking up these consultancies, you're doing this on your own. It's a little bit of this, a little bit of that. You're making it work. You're taking your kind of professional skills to it. I mean, is it killing you? It's tough. I think setting out consulting is like, getting the grind, getting the people, staying on top of it all. Or some people thrive. It's like, I'm multitasking everything. How's that been for you?
That's exactly it. I like to multitask. So I'm multitasking everything. Every day it's something different. So I don't feel like I'm doing the same thing over and over again. I get to kind of make my own schedule, set my own times. so I get to sleep in a little bit. I'm not a morning person.
Yes.
So I'd rather work later at night. So I do tend to look for those, like, I'm on the East Coast, so I've been looking for like Pacific Coast contracts where my times are a little different.
That's funny.
Smart.
So I can work a little later in the morning and stay up a little later at night. But I love just being able to kind of do my own thing and work when I like, if I get tired of working on one thing, switch to another thing so my mind's fresh. So I love it. I'm really enjoying it so far.
Good. That's awesome.
What out of it have you, just for context, Renee, I don't know how much we talked to you about this. Like those listening to this episode will be listening into kind of like a two-parter thing we're doing with some other contractors. So I'm curious, like, what have you found most rewarding out of consulting and contracting? I think it's interesting. There's like a community now of a lot of consulting and contractors who have done a lot of stuff, and it's just kind of become an interesting community. So I always like to find out from people, like, what have you found most rewarding about it, working with, because it's obviously very different than what you were doing before. Like, you're working with multiple different groups of people. What's been most rewarding for you out of that experience?
Yeah, so one of my contracts is with Screencastify, and
Okay.
I do PD facilitation for them. So one of the most rewarding things that I can say for that is that my reach is now national with teachers, where I was just doing professional development in my district and at conferences occasionally. Now I am all over the country virtually with teachers or in person, depending on what they want, through Screencastify training on one of my favorite platforms. I've been using Screencastify since before the pandemic. I've been the top user. I was the top user of my district for several years. I've been like their top 5% worldwide of users. So I definitely know the platform well, and getting to share like my tips and tricks with different school districts, like full of teachers, is huge to me, because my reach is going that much further out there than just locally in Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay. Very cool.
I remember feeling a little bit of that, even just going from my first job, which was a small college, to a larger university. Like, knowing that your reach is greater, really it raises the bar. It's a new challenge, more fun. I respect that. Like, I think it's a beautiful thing to be in a district. I think it's a beautiful thing just to be in a school. I also like serving a larger national audience. It's really good.
Yeah, and with I do have a contract with a university where I'm a subject matter expert for their competency-based teacher education program, and it is just so humbling to me to know that I'm influencing the next generation of special education teachers, because that teacher preparation program was so impactful to me in my undergrad and in my graduate programs, that I know that when I'm coming with the competencies that I'm creating and the assessments that I'm building are really going to impact kids for years and years and years to come as these teachers go through the courses.
Okay. That's awesome. Yeah, it's interesting when you reach similar dynamic, right? Like, reach has changed a bit. Now, I will say I'm the intense worrywart too, who it changes from it is super exciting, I'm influencing a lot of people. Also, like, now every word I write is a lot more pressure inducing.
Stakes are higher.
Which Renee's over here like, thank you, Josh, for reminding me. It's super helpful for my mental health. So, like, I find this interesting, right, Renee? You've probably seen this yourself even before you got into consulting, right? We all know there's kind of like I think it's fair to say there's a group or dynamic of group in education specifically of people who've like gotten into consulting and contracting in the education world with different companies or tech companies, spaces like that. And I think everybody's question always is like, how do you end up getting started in doing this when they're interested in doing this? Like, I know when Will and I have talked to people about like how we ended up doing it, that's been the question for us. Now, our answer is literally we LLC'd a company for the podcast, and then 5 days in, not even a day in, we'll find some random person who's looking for instructional, for developer help. So that's been our story. So I'm curious for you, like, what did it look like to get started in getting some of these contracts, getting in, doing it? Was it the same thing? You were just like a day later, like Will, you were just like, I found 5 people, or like, I know some of it was social media related, right? So
right.
What did that look like?
I spent the last 3 years really building my self brand on X and on LinkedIn and through my Wakelet portfolio. So just having all of those things to kind of put myself out there, and then also like making connections with community managers and other people in the ed tech space. so that when it came time for me to find a consulting position, I had people to reach out to, or people to say, hey, I applied for this. Can you call someone, or can you put in a good word for me? Or people coming to me and saying, hey, we saw this job posting. I think you'd be a good fit for it. So it's a lot of just networking on my own time, building my brand, having those pieces of my portfolio to show that I can do more things than just be in the classroom or just be a district technology specialist. So like my Wakelet portfolio has like 5 or 6 different columns that just showcase all the different things I've done, all the podcast episodes I've been on, all the webinars I've done. It has like all, and I will say that one of the things a friend of mine, Starian, recommended was that I start tailoring my resume to the different jobs I was applying for. So I have probably 6 or 7 different resumes on my Canva account that I use depending on what I'm applying for. And they all basically have the same information, but they're tailored a little bit more specifically to what the companies are looking for. So that they are using some kind of AI resume tool, I don't get kicked out immediately for just being a classroom teacher. So, because I know that's one of the things that always kind of stops people. I didn't take a fancy, expensive course, didn't do any of that. This is all just stuff that I've come up with on my own that's worked for me.
Okay. Do you have a preference, whether it's Bard or ChatGPT or so, like who's your AI tool of?
Actually, right now I like Copilot a lot because it gives me the references at the bottom, like the resources it pulls from. Okay. So I know I have a little bit more like peace of mind that it's coming from somewhere that's not Wikipedia. Because as a teacher, I'm always afraid that something's going to pull from Wikipedia. But I do use Copilot a lot. I especially use the Microsoft Designer for anything text to image related. But I use ChatGPT sometimes. Just kind of depends on what I'm doing. I've started kind of diving into Gemini a little bit. So yeah, I'm all over the place with it. It just depends on what I need it for.
Yeah, that's good to know. I feel like I bounce around a lot, different AI tools. Yeah,
he says that, but isn't it mostly just Notion AI? Come on,
I use Notion AI a lot, but I have used Copilot a lot too. I've been switching over to Copilot for a lot of simple things for similar reasons Renee's mentioned, like referencing, and also Copilot's just direct integration to like Designer and text-based has been really convenient, where you can kind of get like both in one space. Like Notion AI doesn't generate images, though I can lock it down to just my personal stuff. So like to your point, Renee, like I can find it references my personal stuff, so it'll tell me like when it's pulling from my own notes, which is a horrible thing too, because sometimes my own brain thoughts can be Wikipedia.
Yeah, that happens.
Yeah, so it's not very helpful. But what I'm hearing from you, Renee, is it was a lot of, we'll put it up in the banner earlier, those who are just listening to audio, a lot of networking. It sounds like portfolio is really important. Having some stuff to show people, which I can attest to from our background, that has been important. I remember the first contract we were going after for Harness Tech, they were like, can you give us a portfolio? Although at that moment we had no portfolio. So Will and I made a portfolio in 3 days over a weekend. I don't recommend that to anybody. But Wakelet, great tool call out. That's cool. You're doing that there. And I love the Canva thing. I've done that a little bit too, where like you can create, like I have a folder I don't right now because wasn't looking, but I had a folder of like resumes where you could put in different, like save different stuff. And I'm sure you found this too. It's probably pretty easy in Canva just to like tweak and duplicate and do what you want to do.
It is. And I will tell you that I definitely cheat on the cover letter things, because cover letters are not my strong point. And what I do is I copy the expectations that they have and put them right into Copilot and say, please write me a cover letter with these expectations. Yep. And then I just tailor it to match what I want it to match and make it sound more like me and less like AI. And I submit that as my cover letter. And it saves me a ton of time, and it makes me sound a lot better than if I'm trying to just come up with it in my own brain.
And if that goes by Josh's standards that I heard you two talking about pre-recording, as long as mine says cheers at the end, it practically sounds like me anyways. So I just do those things myself. Exactly. If it says cheers and has a rocket ship, I wrote it. I get that. I've got some folks in my life right now who are doing the job hunt, and they'll come to me like, dude, what do I do about this cover letter thing? I was like, you asked the wrong person. Go ask the right AI. Like, I am not against it. It is appropriate. You're using a tool to get to a means. Now, if you just let the tool throw out lies and you cannot substantiate anything it's claiming, there's where your ethical question comes into place. But if you need a writing assistant, I have no problem with people. And I encourage people to use AI to get the darned thing written and then go back over it. Throw in a cheers. You might not need to, but throw in a couple of things, like pull in your real experiences. That's fine. It's going to work.
Yep, just make sure you really actually read it and go through and put the company's name in there, put like specifics about the company in there. That's really important. Like, I like that your company supports this, or I like the fact that your company does this, and make it really personal so that when you do get that interview, you can back some of those things up. And definitely, like you said, make sure that you actually can do all of the qualifications and expectations before you throw them in a cover letter. Like, I wouldn't apply for a job as a rocket scientist because I don't have the qualifications for that. So they're going to, if they interviewed me, realize that I'm not qualified to do that job, whether my cover letter says I am or not.
I love that was your immediate go-to, because that was immediately what happened to my brain. As you were talking, I was thinking, I wouldn't put up a cover letter for a rocket scientist. And then you said it like seconds later, which is fantastic. Yeah, and I also listen, I don't know how many of us on the call have actually been in hiring manager situations, but I've been in a hiring manager situation where I'm the hiring manager. And I'm just gonna be blunt, folks. Let's stop pretending like the cover letter is in-depth read by the hiring manager. Especially when you've got how many applicants, if they're not going to put that much time into the cover letter, the AI, yes, do it carefully. Make sure you're not lying about your qualifications. And I like Renee, what you're saying, be able to back up what you're saying. When you actually get into the interview and talk and they ask about something you said in the cover letter, you do not want to be in that situation where you're I actually don't remember because Copilot wrote it for me, but let me ask Copilot. But
Copilot, what should I say to these guys?
Yeah, what should I say to these guys? But it's the same energy level back and forth, right? About what you're putting in.
Right. And usually, if it has an expectation that AI has put in there, I try to put an example of what I've done with that expectation. So if they ask in an interview, they usually prompt me with, well, you said that because you have you've done professional development with Screencastify, that you're good at this. And I'm like, okay, yes, I remember saying that now. So it's not just what AI has spit out and is just assuming that I know how to do.
Yeah. Right. Absolutely.
Well, and this all comes back to using AI well in the first place. You're already playing with the prompts to ensure you're getting something relevant anyways. If you just say, if you told an AI this prompt, write a cover letter for Renee Dawson applying to Walmart, and that's it, do not trust a word it says. It is just going to write nonsense. But you said you took the job responsibilities or the expectations, you use that. You're probably you might say okay, and make sure to include, I have 5 years of experience in blah. You're putting together the pieces and then saying, turn it into a paragraph formed letter so that it reads from top to bottom with a natural flow. That's way different than write me a cover letter for Renee Dawson applying to Walmart. It knows it's going to keep information about you involved in the process, as opposed to making it all up. We love when it just makes it all up.
Exactly.
All right. How is the work going with the clients? So you've got, you don't have to get into the clients and if they're using proprietary systems, not asking you to that kind of stuff. But I know with my day jobs, right, I've had Microsoft Teams and I've had Google Teams and I've had neither. I've had, I've worked for people who do, and then when we do our contracting, everything through HiTech and Harness Tech is Notion, right? We drive it all from Notion. So are you having fun with that? Is it hard to work across different systems? Are you getting lucky and everybody's using Google? What's that been like?
Not everybody's using Google. Some people are using Teams, which didn't crash the other day with everything else. Teams
That's a surprise.
Fun.
Yeah, my Teams was also fine. Yeah.
The one thing of Microsoft.
The one day it doesn't crash. But so I'm familiar with both platforms and Zoom, so I'm comfortable in all three. And everybody does use something different, which is fine. But I have a couple, I have a software that I use that helps me kind of keep everything straight. I definitely still rely on good old Google Keep to make my to-do lists. But I have long-term to-do lists because I made fancy headers in Canva for them, so they're all pretty.
I love that. Beautiful.
But every day's different, and keeping everything straight can be hard. I rely on my Google Calendar heavily for that.
Okay.
If it's not on my calendar, it doesn't exist. And
Yeah.
if it's not on there, I don't know that it's happening, then I'm not going to be there for it. So managing a calendar across like 5 email accounts has its challenges.
Yeah.
But luckily, like with Google Calendar, you can import other calendars to it. You can link other calendars to it. So
Give them all colors, pretty colors.
Yeah, all of them are in different colors. You know, everybody has their own system of like how to claim different things. If you're in a company where you're doing, where you're working in a department where you have to claim your position or your roles. So,
Right.
you know, once I get all that done, I put it in my Google Calendar, and that's what I live. That's kind of like my daily.
Okay.
I check it before I go to bed. I check it as soon as I wake up. What do I have going on today? So yeah.
What?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, please continue.
I was gonna say, as far as like getting my to-do list done for the day, I use Goblin tools. It's just goblin.tools.
Okay.
And that's how I do my to-do list. I go into the compiler tool, and it lets you kind of brain dump your list of tasks, and you can actually use their speech to text feature. So I go into compiler and click on the microphone and then just say everything I have to do for the day. Then once you do that, it turns it into tasks for you on a magic to-do list, which is pretty cool.
Wow. So, folks, we're seeing in real time goblins taking over your workforce. They are becoming your driving tool for just getting your work. Because part of this is, again, we're coming off of it at the HiTech Podcast, like a whole series on productivity, managing stress, managing workload, etc. And I was even hearing back on some of the things you were talking about there. Like, I noticed how you kept your calendar. I'm thinking through how you worked on tasks. Might drive into like, what does it look like then to just drive the whole project? What do you do to keep the project together? Maybe that's where Keep is. But now we're seeing, before we even get to that kind of functionality on how you're doing the work, Goblin Tools is another AI platform that is helping you start to clean up all the crazy thoughts in the head, put them in an organized list, and make them into something you can begin to do. Is that the kind of the sense?
Yeah, basically on their magic to-do list, underneath it says breaking things down so you don't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Their like aesthetic is my aesthetic. I love this.
I love the little goblin icon. That's the thing that's winning me over right now.
And it's free to use online. The app, it does cost money, but on the web-based version is free. And you can, once I put in my to-do list, I can even use the magic to do to break my tasks down further through AI, and I can choose like based on like their pepper system, like how spicy I want it to be, like how hard or easy I want it to be. So they have 3 peppers, and you can change if you want it harder or easier, like more broken down or less broken down. So it'll do anything for you. You can ask it, like, even as an adult, like my kryptonite is trying to cook rice. Like, I can't cook rice. I can't. I have to call my mom every time I try to cook rice, unless it's boiling bag. I usually just use the boil in the bag one because that's pretty hard to mess up. But if I'm like actually measuring rice and water into a pot, I can't do it. And I'm 40 and I can't do it. So Magic To Do will tell you how to make rice, and it'll break it down as far as you need it to be, like as far as like what boiling water looks like. Like you can get it down to that like level of breakdown for you.
How would you feel about us screen sharing this and trying that prompt out? You want to walk us through?
Yeah, let's do this. I want to see this live.
I'm gonna drive because I've got some things figured out here. Let's get my screens squared away. The point of rice makes me really happy. I'm going to share this screen, and then we'll switch here. We should be clean. Everybody got my screen?
Very, very clean and just easy to use. They marketed it as a tool for neurodivergent people, which I'm a firm believer that everybody has a little neurodivergency in them. But
Preach. Now,
just depends on the level.
Let's start with that question. So how would you ask it? So it's like how to make rice? Is that or just make rice?
No, because it says add a new item. I would just say make rice.
Okay, make rice, and then like you're saying, I've got my spiciness level over here.
Yeah.
And I've got a 1 to 5. So less caliente to más caliente.
So is more peppers breaking it down more?
Yes, more peppers is breaking it down more.
Okay.
Should I roll it at a 1 first? We see what it comes out.
Yeah, let's roll it at a 1, and then we can go from there.
There's so much food related to that.
So I added it. It made it to a list. Now what do I got to do to break this thing?
Break this thing. Break this item.
All right. Break down item. So okay. So rinse your rice. Add your water. Cook rice until done.
Right. And then like I don't know how to cook it until done. So click that one. Click the little breakdown next to cook it till it's done.
Oh yeah. Prepare equipment. What does
measure
that mean?
rice and water. Cook rice until done.
Cook rice until done. So now let's change the spice level at the top.
Okay. Yep. Let's roll this up to a big old 5. I want to go hard. We go with that.
Those listening on audio, we'll just move in a slider to do that to more pepper.
So you're gonna type in make rice again.
Okay. New task, right? Make rice, and we can
and then break it down with the.
So now I'm gonna break down with a 5 scale. All right, let's hit it.
Ooh, it's taking longer.
And folks, it's gather ingredients, measure out the desired, rinse the rice, add rice to a pot, place the pot on the stove, medium heat. All right, that is. I feel like we're still a little generic, but that's the first one. It's like medium heat. Bring the water to a boil. Once boiling, reduce heat to low. Yes. Let the rice simmer for about 18 to 20 minutes. Yes. Remove the pot from the heat and let it sit covered for an additional 5 minutes. So the reason I wanted to go through with this one is I'm the rice maker in the house. I've been making rice since I was like 10. I love making rice. And I wanted to fact check the goblins if they're really
fit
on
your standards well and broke it up appropriately.
Okay. I mean, I don't do the like 5 minutes unless I've got the time. I'll take it right out off the 20, but this is fluff rice with a fork. There's people who are all about the fluffing or not. So that's a tough one, but I'll let it stand. All right. Do you have questions then, Renee? Is there something that's like, oh, I still don't get it?
No, I get it. I mean, I definitely get it. That was just my example of what I like. I have to like one of my weak areas of like, what do I call mom questions? So I always say like the magic to do, it can be like your call your mom question. Like what you call your mom for?
I'm curious, Renee, how well does this do with like, so like obviously make rice, right? Something very broadly, probably on the internet. There's probably like a billion different to-do lists about how well does this do at breaking up tasks that are like really job specific, right? So like the stuff you're doing as a consultant, how does this handle that?
It does well, depending on like the more specific I am, the better I do, which is true with any prompt that you're going to give AI. Yeah. Like the more specific the prompt, the better it does. But it's not going to tell me how to do my job. It just tells me kind of how to focus my time.
Okay.
That's cool.
So, and then the other tools they have, if you want to scroll up, Will, they have some other tools that are pretty cool. They have the formalizer, which helps you like, if you click next to magic to do, the formalizer helps you turn your spicy thoughts into classy ones, or vice versa. And
so this is what you were telling us about earlier about like making it friendly. Like, I love that it's less snarky. That's my favorite.
Yeah, you can choose like how you want it to make your text.
Oh, I want this. I love this so much. Oh my gosh, this would be mine.
Some of our friends struggle with sarcasm, and so if they're trying to come up with something more sarcastic, it'll actually give them a more sarcastic comment than the one they put into the system.
Oh, I won't do this now, but that's definitely a competition I need to figure out later. If I can be more sarcastic than Goblin tools,
than goblins,
yeah.
And
the cool thing is that all of them have the speech to text, so it's very adaptable and accessible to everybody.
It's very accessible.
So that helps. The judge is something I used a lot at my old job. Was how does this even like? Am I misreading the tone of this? Is she really that mad at me, or am I just overreacting?
This is literally going to be a segment I send to several unnamed people in my life. I'm very excited for this. This
is super cool. This is kind of like
so you can either judge what they say, or they don't even suggest a response to what they have said to you.
Okay,
that's great.
That's super cool.
Great.
Yeah, and then they just added.
So like Magic Goblin Tool, sorry, just one quick comment. What I'm learning is Goblin.tools is Renee's will. Like this is what I just use will for. Other than breaking down to-dos, that's my job. But the rest of it is like, will make this less mean to our client. Like that's
I love wordsmithing, writing. I take a lot of pleasure in like making it very relational. So like, yes, there's typically a lot of times where it's like, hey, all right, so we need this done. Hey, Will, can you massage this a little bit? I'm gonna be like, no, just go check out Goblin Tools. We'll be fine.
Renee has a Goblin for
the Goblin.
Yeah, I have a Goblin for that. And then their next tool, Professor, is a new one that they've just added, and that is like it'll give you a crash course or whatever you ask it for.
You're gonna ask it to how to make rice, aren't you?
Just gotta see
Let's
what
see
it comes
if it
up
fluffs.
with.
It's only at 3 spicy, so who knows?
Oh, this is how a professor would write that. Yeah, definitely much better. And then it comes down to the steps too. That's great.
Yep. Isn't that awesome?
Oh,
No fluffing though.
No fluffing at the bottom of that one. Yeah,
I'm
fluff the
so
rice
tempted.
report.
Oh, really?
There it is.
Does it have it there?
Yeah, in the paragraph.
There you go, folks.
Boom.
It's made it into 2 places. So maybe you need to fluff
Make sure
the
you
rice.
fluff your rice. Rinsed rice and rinsed rice. So you rinse or you don't rinse, depending actually on the texture you want on the end. Like I'm 9 out of 10 times a not rinser because I like the texture of my rice without that, with the extra starches or whatever that's in there. But when you rinse, it does come out a little smoother. It separates a bit easier. It is a little fluffier.
You're so passionate about rice.
Dude,
I've known you for how many years? I didn't know you cared this much about rice. This is how we immediately lost everybody who wants to listen to us. Like, other than Renee will keep listening to us because of rice, but like everybody else has just dropped off. Anyway,
that's perfect.
Oh man, this is super cool tool, Renee. This is
so
awesome.
then the
Really cool.
estimator is actually a good one too, especially for high schoolers because they have time management issues in general. I have time management issues sometimes, but it'll tell you how long something will take, and it's available also in the magic tool list. The magic to-do list as well.
Okay. I should have asked it how long it's going to take to cook rice, but I know the answer. It's anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes, depending on your preparation style. 5 to 10 hours. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That was
I'll
only
be honest,
spicy.
I thought for a second you asked how long does it take to write a paragraph research paper, and it said 5 to 10 hours. And I was like, oh, this is very unrealistic. And then I realized, he wrote 10 pages.
I did start typing paragraph. I backspaced and went to.
Renee, have you found it pretty accurate? Because you're using this obviously on a regular basis. So have you found it fairly accurate?
I work kind of faster than it suggests, but it's fairly accurate. Yeah, as far as time management, it does help me like at least block out, if nothing more time than I actually need.
Okay.
This is just.
And the compiler is the one I showed you at the beginning, where you kind of do the brain dump.
Yeah, you brain dump in, and it will.
And then the chef is a really cool one. I know we were talking about cooking rice, but the chef, you give it what you have, what ingredients you have available. You can also tell it your dietary constraints, any serving sizes, equipment you have or don't have, time, or like how good you are at cooking. Like, so I want to,
Yeah, so Will's typing in right now. I want to make a Thanksgiving dinner for 10 people with gluten-free options. He's getting very specific. Include turkey, non-meat for vegetarians. Make sure you include rice. No, I'm just joking.
There must be.
There must be rice. You gotta add rice into it.
There we go. Let's see what it does. Just fire it off. I mean, these are the things you just gotta be able to. Oh no. Oh good. That's a lot. That's great.
That's awesome. That's super cool.
Let's see.
So this is obviously the main way Renee is surviving consulting at this point, is breaking up tasks, and it's got you completely covered, Renee. Task breaking up and eating. I mean, like, that's basically survival at that point.
Yeah, like my roommate and I put in the other night that we had a pound of chicken, a bell pepper, sweet potatoes, and a couple other ingredients, and it gave us an actual recipe to use to make something that included all those ingredients, and it was pretty accurate. It tasted good. It was. We were happy with what it came up with.
Okay. That's the important part. Is it actually going to taste like something you want to eat? You want to make sure, even if you've got it, that it's going to fit the bill, because you can throw it out there and it could taste like Goblin food for all you know. But...
so shifting gears here.
How I survive.
Yeah. So you're doing all those things. You're surviving with Goblin tools. So shifting gears here a little bit. So how long have you actually been consulting at this point now, Renee? Has it been
since June, full time since June, since I got out of school.
Okay, cool. So you've been doing it for a little bit. What so far, like, if you could share a lesson with past Renee or somebody starting consulting, what's been like one of the most helpful things you've learned along the way that's been like, this has been key to me doing my consulting work in contracting?
I would say look for a variety of things. That's what's kind of like kept me afloat right now, is that I have a variety of things going on.
Okay.
Don't just look for one thing and just stick with it. Like, apply for things that you might not think you're meant for, because you never know what your skill set will really do well with. Like, I am on Twitter and I'm on LinkedIn, but I never thought I'd be a community manager and running social media for a company. And I love it because it's so much fun to have that experience. And now that's opened up doors with other contract opportunities for me, because I've been doing social media building and community management for this company that now I have, and I've been doing that since February. She actually cold messaged me on LinkedIn at Betsy.
Wow.
Okay.
And I responded like, hey, actually, I'm presenting on Almanac today in my session. That's really crazy that you would message me. And we got along well. And so I've been doing community management for them since February, just part-time. And I've done everything from manage their social media to, I just finished building out a professional development deck for teachers to be able to grab off their site and use to train their staff.
Okay.
Wow.
And our next step is building out an ambassador program.
Okay. Super cool.
I love that. And soon enough, you're going to be like a Goblin ambassador if it works out. You know, we just got to make sure we keep.
I feel like there needs to be a more creative name for that. Let's be honest. Like, I don't know what it is yet, but Goblinite.
I don't know.
I mean, maybe we need to ask Goblin. We should compile some thoughts and put the word in there.
Compile some thoughts and ask about that. That's super cool. That's awesome. A good point. Like, diversifying. I mean, Will and I have noticed that a bit, right? Like, willing to try to like venture out. It also gives you more, as I'm sure you've experienced, it gives you more diversity in what you can give to people too. If you're able to try out those different things, you have a little bit more of a broader skill set. Because sometimes I feel like we have to kind of have like a Swiss Army knife of tools sometimes when you're helping out different people across different fields and what they're doing. In different ways, and Will and I only experience that to a certain level because we're only really doing it through the podcast a little bit. But
and I would definitely recommend having a portfolio and keeping it updated, because my resume was so cluttered with like, I've been on this podcast, I won this award, I've been featured in this, I wrote an article for this magazine. So I took all that off my resume and made it just a Wakelet portfolio, like a Wakelet board with columns and everything's on there. And now every time I do something, so like after this goes live on different platforms, I'll add it to my portfolio on Wakelet, so it's right there, ready to go, so that whoever looks at my portfolio knows what I've been up to, or knows what I do, or can listen to me, how I represent myself or how I represent other companies in different scenarios. So that's been really helpful too, because I just have it on my resume as my website, and I have a QR code on my resume also, so people can just scan it and my portfolio comes right up for them.
Super cool.
So you've got kind of like some techniques involved, right? Like networking, portfolio writing. There's certain things that have to go into this, but then it's the way you're executing it that is definitely proving to be the difference. Like, you're using the tech to show you use tech to make sure you can teach people to use tech. Like, you gotta. I mean, it may seem obvious, but I appreciate that, because there are definitely folks out there who like get on this AI train. They're selling conferences and stuff to AI and how you can do with AI, and the first thing they're doing is like, so today we really need to get into ChatGPT's OpenAI, and that's 30 minutes, getting everybody to open it up, walk in, and then they're just messing around with prompts in the back end, as opposed to someone who's using tools like Goblin, using tools across the board. When you answered my question earlier of like, oh yeah, Copilot's my top, I'm like, wow, someone who's not just using ChatGPT is also an example of someone who's getting in there, doing the work, trying it out, right? You got to be on top of these things. Otherwise, what do you have to offer?
Right. And I've taken some courses. No, I've taken some courses on my own time from HubSpot and Udemy on different tech things. So I took one on Udemy on prompt engineering, which was huge. It was a huge help. I got it on sale for like $15 one day, and it's usually like $105. So I like managed to like run across a sale that was like super affordable for me. So I did that on my own time. And then on HubSpot, I did a content marketing course that taught me about how to use social media for marketing, write blog posts for marketing, all of that stuff. And it was free, but I managed to take it during a week that they were off, so I didn't have to do any of the forum activities.
Yeah,
I got to just go through the coursework and get my certificate.
Smart.
So just
work smarter, not harder.
Kind of, exactly. Have helped me along the way. And now with like the prompt engineering course, like I know exactly how to phrase prompts for whatever I need. And if not, I have a whole like GitHub tab that I've saved their collection of prompts for different things. So
Dang. See, folks, I mean, you could reach out to Renee for help in getting started on all this stuff, or you could go and work with Renee and have her come do it for you, right? I mean, I think that's always an option here. What's the website? You mentioned you've got one. If someone wanted to reach out, get more information about working with you directly, where should they head to?
If someone wanted to reach out, the best place to reach me is on X at Dawson EdTech. I'm on X all day long, looking at different things. But I do have a website. It is, let me pull it up and I'll drop it in the chat so you can broadcast it.
Yep.
I have it right here.
Show notes and
but I do have
too.
my own website that lists all my services and how much I charge for them if you wanted to hire me.
Love it.
So it is a bit.ly site. So it's bit.ly/D4U-Learn.
Okay. And I'm putting that
my
on
company
screen
is designed
here.
for you learning.
Put that on screen. So if you're on X, head over to Dawson EdTech. If you just want to get started with that, I love that bit D4U-Learn. There you go. I love that.
Yeah, Design for You Learning is my LLC. Started off just as a tutoring LLC, and now it's branched into a consulting LLC.
I get it. When you start with something, it's like, hey, we started the whole podcast, the whole business thing started to make the podcast into something, and it went everywhere else but that. But you just go with the universe, because you never know where you're going to end up. And the people, cool. I mean, you meet so many cool people, and the opportunities you get, and you get to shake hands, and hopefully, like you said earlier, make an impact on this world. So it's lovely.
Right. And like one of my contracts, I told you this earlier before you got on the air, but I went up to them at a conference and just started talking to the founders and found out that they were just a startup. And I said, well, hey, if you need a content writer, I do that. And I now work for them. So, it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt to shoot your shot. What the worst they're going to say is no. And then that's okay.
That's it.
They might say yes. And now you have a contract where you're, doing well with this company that is a startup, and you're at the beginning of it. And that's such an exciting feeling to be at the beginning of something that could be fabulous and that you have faith in to be fabulous.
Yeah. Awesome.
Super.
Well, Renee, thank you so much for taking the time with us. We're going to roll down here. I'll do a little debrief in just a second, but we love that you become a friend of the podcast. You stayed a friend of the podcast. That's the testament.
Of course.
I wish you all the best in all this consulting stuff. I hope folks will grab your links and get in touch.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll schedule another time for me to check in, in like 6 months and see if I still love it as much.
Yeah, there it is. See how many more goblins you're using.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. We'll roll here in just a second. Okay, we are back, and we thank you again, Renee. Such a great time. We've now learned, thanks to Goblin Tools and your support, how to cook rice. Everyone, hopefully you've listened, or you're heading over to Goblin Tools yourselves and just asking it how to make rice. But I was just stunned. As Renee typically does, we in the sense of the HiTech podcast, we ask for an app, and of course, Renee brought more than that in the best way, right? She talked about Almanac, Screencastify, Wakelet, Canva, of course, HubSpot, Udemy, Copilot, Goblin Tools, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, she is using so many different tools to deliver on her consulting work and to get herself together and to put out her platforms and things like that. So it's really, I think, just an awesome opportunity to see, there is never one tool that you might think Notion is it, but even Harness Tech and HiTech rely on Discord for communication, StreamYard for recording, et cetera, right? So Notion does almost everything else, but just like that, Renee is using, a good suite of tools to make sure her materials are getting out to the folks she's working with. So I just love that. It's so uplifting. Appreciate the atmosphere, but also really cool to see her launching and having success with trying to get into the consulting world, because it's not easy to find those clients, as we well know, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think what stuck out to me with Renee's conversation is I want to highlight a couple things. Of course, Renee, I know with her, she loves using tech. So she immediately has like a billion different AI things that she's doing. But I want to highlight specifically what a lot of Renee is doing with AI in the conversation is she's using it to cut out some of the monotonous stuff that people spend a lot of time doing, right? Like organizing her day. While yes, she's going to know what's priority versus not, and she can always edit what comes out of Goblin tools to give her. At the end of the day, she's plugging in a lot of stuff she knows she needs to get done for the day, and this tool helps her organize things. The way she was using it in resumes to help cut back some of the time it takes to, like, she's not having it write it for her. She's writing her stuff and then using AI to help replicate a little bit more in a way that can allow her to connect better with multiple audiences in what she's doing, right? Like, I think those are the ways that I'm noticing AI actually being the most useful. When it actually, Will and I have to laugh. It's like the times that, like, they pitch, like, plug in all this content and AI will write a course for you, right? Or, like, develop content for you. Like, that stuff's laughable to me. But the stuff that I am finding AI helping the most is, like Renee was saying, like filtering an email to make sure it's written the way I want it to be. Or just today, like for myself, I was using AI. I had a giant amount of text that was out of an original course, and I knew that it was just way too big. And I decided for funsies to throw it into my AI tool, not Goblin tools. But Goblin tools seem super cool. I'm a pattern of habit in some places, let's be honest. But I threw it in there. And in seconds, it like produced a pretty solid job of a simplified version that was down and was the key stuff. I did some editing, and I think that's the key of what Renee said. Always edit after you're done. But it helped me cut out some of the time that I would have spent forever just staring at that, trying to figure out what I wanted to pull in and out or how to organize it. In some cases, that's something you want to do. In other cases, you've got a whole bunch of stuff you need to do. This is just kind of like a helpful assistant in ways to pull some of that space out.
Yeah.
And so I think that's really cool of what Renee is doing.
Like you said on like repeatability or replicating stuff, like an example that I think applies to what Renee was talking about is like cover letters, right? If you can generally capture, 2 or 3 points about why you're in the career search right now, or why you're job hunting, or what you're looking for in a job, and then the jobs you're applying to are across different industries or different kinds of work, that you could have AI take one that you write, take one cover letter you write, and then say, hey, AI, adapt this for a healthcare industry and include blah 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 points, right? So it could take your kind of form or your template cover letter, and it could just modify it a bit, update it, add some more language in there that's more relevant to, say, a different field than you typically apply to. And it can help you kind of take one cover letter and multiply it to different areas. Always edit. I think that's like the asterisk we'll always say on using an AI tool. Always edit it. But that's going to save you time. Why write 10 cover letters when you can write most of one and then have AI do a lot of work for you to get the other 9 out of it? I think that there's plenty of space to make the most of these kinds of tools that way.
Yeah.
And we're both saying, don't use it to generate the work completely. Use it to modify, augment, replicate stuff that you're already doing.
Yeah, I would agree. And I would highlight again with Renee too, other couple small things, just because we're thinking about this as we've come out of our productivity series and all the stuff we've been doing in HiTech the first like month and a half of what we've been doing. As much as I love a lot of the other tools out there, like Google Calendar is something Renee mentioned, that we've mentioned, that we hear people mention time and time again. Like if you're looking for a good solid tool for yourself to organize, especially if you're doing consulting and work like that, like Google Calendar is one of the best ones out there. As much as I love Notion Calendar and Notion, of course, it's for a certain type of people we've already talked about. Google Calendar is much more accessible, I think, in many ways. And so I think it's a really cool tool. I think the point of it is just, it's clear after talking to Renee, she's got some type of system. So if you're going to get into consulting, things like that, take it from Will and I, take it from Renee. One of the first things you can kind of think through is, what tools am I going to use to organize my day? And that's where you need to start with and take a look at. So I want to just highlight again, for those listening, we already did when Renee was on, but if you want to connect with Renee, her Twitter handle is @Dawson EdTech, and then we will be posting her bit.ly link, which is bit.ly/D4ULearn. But we'll be posting that in the show notes. So if you want to connect with Renee or check out the work that Renee is doing, she's doing some awesome work. You can do that there, and head over to our website, hitechpod.us, and you can find all of the information I just shared with you. If you're listening in your car, like a normal podcast listener, just go to that website and you'll find all this stuff if you can't remember everything we're saying right now. Because if you're driving, I just imagine most podcast listeners driving. So I think it's probably because of Robin. But if you're driving, don't write this down. Don't kill yourself over this. Just go to our website. That's all you gotta do.
Yeah, put the sparkly pen down and get to it once you get to work. Well, what's 160? Episode 160 with Renee Dawson. Well, thank you again, Renee. Next episode is going to be episode 161. We are continuing this little kind of like how-to space of getting started, contracting, working with other people in kind of a digital world. We're going to actually we're very excited, Michael Smith join us from Dadziner. Dadziner is the brand, the name, the brains behind the brand refresh for the HiTech Podcast. So we're very excited. We'll hear a little bit of maybe a little bit of how he went about doing it and what he thought while he was working on our work or on our content. But we're also specifically going to talk about how he collaborates with his clients, because we felt that it was actually a really cool process. Very effective. It helped 4 people stay on top of everything and see all the process besides his actual digital, work. But very, very cool. So tune in next week, episode 161, or next time for that episode with Michael. I think we've got everything successful. It's always still this new format. So we are done. Great episode. Thank you all. This is a wrap on another week of Empowering Minds.
Embracing tech. Cheers.
Cheers.